Hello, I'm Jess and I'll be your tutor for this prac segment. This is Winnie, my technician, who is going to make a lot of magic happen in this prac segment. So today we are looking at a little unicellular organism called Clamydomonas. I'm going to be referring to this little guy as Clammy for the rest of the prac segment. It's green, as Winnie says. And we are going to be removing, this little guy has two little flagella, and we're going to be removing those and then measuring them as they regrow. And so what we want to do is we want to measure that regrowth every 20 minutes after we've removed the flagella. So we want to take a measurement at time 0, so as soon as we've removed the flagella. So we're going to have to be very quick. So before we remove those flagella, the first thing that we're going to do is to prepare our tubes. So Winnie has got some Eppendorf tubes here. Now we're going to be making measurements at time 0, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes and 80 minutes. So we need 5 tubes for that. And what else?
Plus the control.
Plus the control. So how are we going to know what those flagella should look like when they're fully regrown? We're also going to take a control, which is our measurement from our clammy that has not had its flagella removed. So we've got 6 tubes, and Winnie is going to label the tops of those tubes with our control. We'll probably put a C there for that.
Yep.
Our 0, which is a measurement we're going to take as soon as we have removed those flagella. We're then going to leave those clammy to, in a nice medium, start to regrow their flagella, and we want to take some out at 20 minutes, at 40 minutes, at 60 minutes, and at 80 minutes. And at each of those time steps, we want to prevent those clammy from growing any more flagella. So we want to stop that regrowth at that time step. And the way that we are going to do that is to preserve those clammy at that time step in concentrate iodine solution. So once Winnie has put the labels on all those tubes, she'll be putting 50 microliters of our concentrate iodine solution into each one of those tubes. So Winnie has grabbed her yellow pipette because she's using 50 microliters, and so she's got the 10 to 100 microliter pipette. She goes to her first stop, brings up that iodine, goes into our Eppendorf tube and pushes all the way to second stop. And because she's using that same iodine solution without anything else in it, she's using the same pipette tip so that she can be quite quick and get all that iodine into each of those Eppendorf tubes. Now, anyone who's had any experience with iodine knows that it leaves a bit of a stain. So Winnie is going to close up that iodine tube and then close the lids on all our Eppendorfs. That's going to prevent any evaporation while we are removing the flagella from our clammy, and just prevents us knocking that over and getting that potassium, that iodine all over the bench. So we're ready to go. All right, Winnie is just going to go and get our clammy culture. And here we are. So as I said, it's green. And in there we've got lots of little unicellular clammy that are very happy, and they've all got their 2 flagella. Now Winnie is going to take some of this culture out. So about how much are you taking there, Winnie?
70 ml out of 100.
So we've got 100 mils. She's taking out 70, and she's going to leave that other 30 mils, and we will use that as our control to see what clammy look like before we remove the flagella. So she has here a pH electrode to check the pH, because we are going to change that pH, and that is going to make our clammy drop their flagella.
Yep.
So right now we're cleaning the electrode. What are we using to clean the electrode?
That is the RO water.
So just RO water to clean that electrode, and then some Kim wipes to wash off that RO water. So this is our pH meter, and we can see that the pH is currently 8.48.
Yep.
So we're going to add the acetic acid to drop the pH. So if we drop the pH too suddenly, we might kill our clammy, which is what we don't want to do, because we want them to regrow that flagella. So Winnie is going to add 500 microlitres or 0.5 of a mil at a time to try to drop that pH down to between 4.5 and 5. So if we just add a little bit at a time, now we don't want to add too much because we don't want to drop that too far. We just want to get it around 5, a little bit below 5.
I think that's it.
So 4.8, and we're happy with 4.8.
Yep.
So we now need to quickly add in our potassium hydroxide to bring our pH back up. We don't want to leave our clammy at that low level for too long. So Winnie's quickly going to bring that up. Again, we're adding about 500 microlitres at a time. So if that pH stays too low for too long, we might kill our clammy.
2.
So we're back up to 6.2. So we'd like to bring it back up to over 7.
That's good.
That's good. So we're back at 7.3 and we're happy with that. So we're going to pop that clammy culture that's had the flagella removed into 2 new centrifuge tubes. And you see that these tubes are labelled with a T. The T is for treatment. So we're going to have a control culture and also a treatment culture where we have removed those flagella. So when we use our centrifuge, which we'll show you in a moment, we have to make sure that that centrifuge is balanced, otherwise it won't spin properly. And it will get very grumpy with us, won't it, Winnie?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to go there quickly.
So we're going to go quick. Okay, so while we've got those tubes, our treatments spinning in our centrifuge, we're going to leave that spinning for 2 minutes. And while we do that, Winnie is just transferring the rest of that culture into a tube that we've labelled control. So you remember this tube has had no treatment, the flagella are still attached, and we can measure the flagella on that control to have a look at what it looked like before we removed those flagella. Just get an idea of how big they are and what they should look like. Okay, look, we can see the clammy from our centrifuge has pushed all those clammy right down to the bottom of those vials there. So what Winnie is going to do now is pour off the supernatant that we've got on top there. And we just want to keep those clammy down the bottom. And we want to make them really happy again so that they will start to regrow those flagella. So Winnie's just using that little pipette there to make sure that none of our little clammy come out of the bottom of that vial. And to make those clammy really happy, we are going to put a medium back in with them. So what's in the medium?
Oh, all sorts of nutrition for it to grow happily.
Beautiful. So we can see when she puts in the medium, it resuspends all that clammy and our whole mixture goes all green again. And then we just pipette up and down gently to mix those clammy into the medium and make sure that all the clammy have got plenty of access to that medium. Okay, so at this moment our preparation is all done. We've removed those flagella. We're going to start the time. So this is time 0. What do we need to do at time 0?
We have to take a sample.
We need to take a sample so that we can see what it looks like at time 0, before or as those flagella are starting to regrow. So we're going to take 50 microlitres and we are going to put that in with our 50 microlitres of the iodine
solution.
concentrate solution. So when we do that, what happens to our clammy?
Well, we preserve it.
We
and
preserve
basically
it.
we killed it.
We do preserve it, and basically our clammy are dead now.
Yeah.
So at the same time, we are going to take a sample from our control. So remember, this has had no treatment. These were our happy little clammy that did not lose their flagella. And again, Winnie just takes 50 microlitres of that control and pops it in with our 50 microlitres of our iodine concentrate, and we're preserving those clammy as they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop those onto the shaker. That just keeps it all mixing around with the clammy and the medium. They've got plenty of access to that. It's warm over there, keeps them at an appropriate temperature. And that will just keep them happy and continuing to regrow those flagella. And we've got our timer going. So at 20 minutes, at 40 minutes, at 60 minutes, and at 80 minutes, we can take out 50 microliters from our treatment, and we'll pop that in with our 50 microliters of our iodine solution, and that will preserve the flagella regrowth at each of those time steps. All right, so we are going to now have a look at what those flagella look like using our control. Okay, so how are we going to look at those flagella, Winnie?
We are going to look at them in the under the microscope.
Ooh, we're going to look at them under the microscope. Okay, so to look at them under the microscope, the first thing that we need to do is to prepare a slide.
I will take 10 microliter
Okay.
for the slide.
For the slide, we're going to use 10 microliters. So Winnie has our control that's been mixed in with our iodine concentrate. So the clammy that is in this little Eppendorf tube has been preserved using our iodine concentrate. And we will put 10 microliters onto a slide. So the first thing that we have to make sure we do is to label the slide. So this one is our control. So Winnie's put a C in that frosty section of the slide, which is there for labeling. She's got a new pipette, and again we're using our 10 to 100 microliter pipette because we're taking 10 microliters. So she gently pops that in, making sure there's no bubbles. And we suck a little bit of our control out. And we want to put that right into the middle of the slide because we're going to pop a cover slip on top of that. And we don't want to lose all our little Clamydomonas off the side of our slide. So Winnie gently takes the slide and she's using her pipette to very gently place that cover slip over the top of our control. And as she drops it there, you saw it beautifully spread out over the slide. So that means that our clammy should be beautifully spread out over that whole slide, and we should be able to find some lovely clammy in there to have a look at.
Yeah, so we are going to look at it under the
Let's move to the microscope. Okay, so we've moved over to our microscope, and we've gotten out our laptop, and we've taken the cover off our microscope. What's the first thing that we need to do?
Actually, it's taking off the gloves because I can't touch the microscope with my gloves on.
Good point. All right, let's take our gloves off, which is a great feeling. And we will just throw those away. Okay, so got our gloves off. We're ready to touch the microscope. So the image software that we use when we connect our microscope to our laptop is something called Motic. So the first thing that we do is use our USB to connect our laptop to our microscope. We've got our Motic open on our laptop. We've got our microscope connected to our laptop. We want to put on the capture to make sure that our Motic is knowing to look at our microscope camera. So we have to make sure that we pull the pin out, which is on the right side of the microscope. When we pull that, then we can see what the microscope is seeing on our computer. So we just pop that slide onto the stage and make sure that it's clicked in securely. We turn the microscope light on, and then we can lift up that stage. So we want to make sure when we're first putting that slide onto the microscope that our stage is quite low so that we don't knock our microscope lens.
Ooh, I found them.
That was quick. So Winnie is starting with our 4x lens, and using that she's able to find our clammy pretty quickly because she's got a bigger area that she's looking at. All right, let's increase the magnification. So when we move up to the 10x, so what we want to do is we want to find a section of the slide where we have lots and lots of those little clammy close together, so we can see quite a number of them as we move up to higher magnification. So we're going to find 3 little guys, and we want to put that right in the center of our screen because that is what is going to be enlarged as we move our focus up. So we'll increase the magnification up to 40x, And look, we can see those 3 little clammy right in the center of the screen. So when we move up to 40 times, we can start to see those flagella there, and they're still looking quite curved.
Yeah, this one's good. This one's good. Look at that.
Oh, there we go. We found a good one.
See?
Oh, perfect. Perfect. All right, so this one is going to make it quite easy for us to measure. We've got our little clammy in the middle there, and its 2 flagella are sticking out at opposite angles and quite straight.
Yeah.
Okay, so in order to get a really clear image when we go up from that 40 times to 100 times, we want to add a bit of immersion oil. So what Winnie has done is she's slightly turned it between our 40 times and our 100 times magnification, and she's added a little dot of oil, and then she very carefully and gently moves it round to that 100 times. And as it does that, the little lens on the 100 times goes into the oil. So we've got 2 really great flagella there that we're going to be able to measure using our software.
So I take
So before we do anything else, Winnie's going to take a picture by clicking on that little camera icon, and we can go back to the home window and make sure we bring back up that picture that we've just taken, and we click on measure down the bottom there. And then we've got to select the correct magnification. So in this case, we want to make sure that we're on the 100 times. So once we're all set up, we can select measure at the top of the screen, and we can choose the line because we're going to measure using the line. So we find it easier to measure from the tip of the flagella back to the body because this is a little bit easier for us to see. Yep, so once we've clicked on the end of the tip, we're going to drag the line back to the body, trying to follow as closely as possible that flagella. So we've got the reading there at 8.2 micrometers. Okay, so this is our control, remember? So this is before we removed any of our flagella. And this gives us an idea of what we expect that flagella to regrow to and what they look like before we removed them. So we're going to take 10 measurements of 10 different clammy cells because a bit like people, clammy can be a bit different. There can be a bit of variation. So we're going to take 10 measurements of 10 different flagella and we'll pop those up on iLearn for you. Okay, so our timer's gone off and it's time for us to do our next slide.
And I put my gloves on.
Winnie's just going to pop her gloves back on because she's been working on the microscope, so she had her gloves off. She'll pop her gloves back on and we just need to go and grab our treatment. So our treatment's been sitting there, our flagella have slowly been regrowing. We need to take a sample at this time step and preserve our clammy at this moment so we can measure the flagella. So we've got our Eppendorf tube that's got our 50 microlitres of the iodine solution. Winnie's going to open up that treatment and she'll take 50 microlitres of that treatment and she'll pop it into the Eppendorf tube with the iodine, which will preserve our clammy at this time step. And that means that we can come back and make a slide of this when we're ready. So once we've done that, we just need to put that clammy treatment back onto the rocker so that it's nice and happy and our flagella can continue growing. All right, Winnie, so that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So we've taken measurements from our control, we've taken measurements from our 0 minutes, we've taken 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, 80 minutes.
Ooh.
We've put all those measurements up for you on iLearn, and you can have a look at how that flagella regrows and look at its graph its growth rate and see what happens there. So what do we need to do to clean up, Winnie?
Okay. We need some of this cleaning solution.
So we've got some cleaning solution there, and we've got our Kim wipes. So Winnie's just grabbed a couple of Kim wipes and she hasn't soaked those Kim wipes with the cleaning solution, just a little bit, single spray. Did you watch how Winnie dropped? She dropped that stage before she touched that slide. So that was just making sure when she removed the slide, she wasn't hurting anything. You also noticed that Winnie did not move the other microscope onto the oil. So she was very careful not to put the other lens on the oil. So she dropped the stage before she moved anything round, and she's cleaned off that 100 times lens using her Kim White with a bit of cleaning solution on it.
And that's done.
And that's done. We've turned off our microscope. We can go and take a break.
Yeah.
See you for the next one.